you, everyone. Before we part ways, real quick, I'd like to turn it over to Captain Steve Trainor, Director of Leadership Education and Development Division, for some final comments. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Daphne, thank you very much. Again, General Sattler, thank you so much for your inspiring words. You're an inspiration to us every day, and you help make this conference what it is. I've been privileged to be a part of 9 of these conferences now. Over the last 9 years, and this by far was the best run, best organized, best participation, most engaging, I think, and the most we can take away from it as well. And I hope all of you feel the same way as your first or as multiple conferences for some of the faculty sponsors for this. So I'm just really pleased to be able to be a part of this wonderful organization and to be around these awesome young leaders who put this on. So I just want to take a very brief amount of time because I know there's a tight time schedule and there's a lot of things that have to happen here. So I just want a couple of final words for the conference. And it has to do, when you look at the theme of the conference, bold action. There's kind of this bold action in the face of adversity. One thing we talked about a lot was trust. And so just ask a question is, how long does it take to lose trust? It takes an instant. How long does it take to build trust? Pardon? A lifetime? Okay. Anyone else? You all think, how many believe a lifetime to build trust? How many believe a while to build trust? Okay. Well, I would argue that we can build trust in an instant as well. And I'll give a brief vignette from my background, from my experience, that kind of highlights that, because I think it's important as leaders to realize that as well. I'm a helicopter pilot, and as a very junior pilot, with only a couple hundred hours early on in my career, I was flying out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean off the coast of the Philippines, and we were flying a night mission. And I was the co-pilot, but my job that night was to actually take the helicopter off the back of the ship. It was a small ship, a frigate, which is the flight deck. It's only about 10 feet, 12 feet off the back of the ocean. And my job was to launch the helicopter, and I was flying with a really senior officer who was in charge of us. And his job was to train us, to prepare us, to help us to do all of our things that we need to do. My job was to learn from him to become the best pilot I possibly could become. And so he designated me to do the launch that night, which meant my job, middle of the night, black night, no moon, nothing to see, was to basically get that helicopter as far away from the water and the ship as possible, as soon as possible, so we could safely start our mission. And his job was to back me up, and there was a crewman in the back of the helicopter who was backing me up as well. Well, the senior pilot was, I'm 6'1", I fit in the helicopter quite well. He was 6'6", his name was Clarence. He was huge, and he was always hitting the controls. He was always bumping the controls, so you kind of got used to flying with him, that you'd be flying along, and all of a sudden you'd feel boom in the pedals, and then you look over, and it was just Clarence moving his legs, because he was a huge guy in the helicopter. He barely fit in the helicopter. Or you'd be flying along, and he'd reach to get a map or something, and he'd hit the cyclic, which is what you use to kind of turn the helicopter, and boom, look over, it was just Clarence. So you got used to that sort of thing. He was a wonderful guy, a great pilot, but he was just really, in my opinion, too big to be flying in a helicopter. So we get ready to take off that night, off the back of the helicopter. And if you can envision, close your eyes if you will, envision this, because that's basically what you're seeing, is that you close your eyes as you turn 45 degrees away from the back of the ship. And again, it's just this little square that the helicopter's on. You turn 45, there's nothing to see in front of you, so you look at the gauges, and you start your takeoff climb. You pull maximum collective in order to start to climb the helicopter away from the back of the ship. And our job was, again, to get as far away as quickly as possible so we could start flying safely. And if you don't do that, you enter in what they call dead man's curve, where you're too slow or too low to safely fly the helicopter. And if something bad happens, you're going to fly into the water. Okay, there's just no two ways about it. So the goal was to get to that point of safe altitude and safe airspeed so that you could do the mission. So I turned black. I focus on the gauges because that's my job. I pull an armpit full of collective, and we start to lift off the helicopter, lifts off the back into the black, and all of a sudden I feel, boom. Well, my first instinct is, oh, Clarence, damn it, what are you doing? This is not the time to be bumping the controls. my next instinct is to see yellow, red, noises that didn't sound right. And I realized, oh my, we just lost an engine. And at that point in time, what do you think your first instinct would be to do? What would you want to do? Anybody? What's that? And you can't bail out of a helicopter. Besides scream or bail out. What? Tell Clarence? Okay, well, he was aware as well. What do you think you'd try to do at that point in time? Well, you can't land because, pull up. There you go. That's what I'm looking for. Continue to go. Get the heck out of here. Get the heck out of here. That would be the absolute worst thing to do at that point in time. Okay? In fact, the thing you need to do at that point in time is actually fly towards the water. Because if I continue to pull power on my one good engine, and I'm full of gas, and then it just took off and I'm really slow, what's going to happen? I'm going to lose power, and I'm going to lose my ability to even fly the helicopter anymore. So my job as the pilot, as this guy with really no experience, was to actually fly the aircraft towards the water. Get on the gauges. I can't see the water, but get on the gauges and push the nose over towards the water so we can start to speed up. Right? Speed is life, okay? And Clarence's job was to tell me how fast I was going. And the crewman's job in the back was to tell me how high I was. So that if we weren't fast enough, we weren't high enough, we eventually could maybe try to land in the water. Well, the moral of the story is we did. We did all those things. But afterwards, I got to thinking about this, and I went to Clarence and I said, why didn't you take the controls? Right? That seems like the logical thing to do. He had several thousand hours in the aircraft. I had 200 and something hours in the aircraft. I had no experience. And he said at that point in time, I entrusted you with doing your job. Okay? He entrusted in me the responsibility to do my job. And he said, if I had done anything else, we wouldn't have survived. I couldn't have wrestled the controls from you. I couldn't have talked you out of it. There was no time to do that. And so I think if you consider the idea of entrusting others in adversity, you're going to have to, and it talks about training, all these other things we've discussed beforehand, but the idea of entrusting someone. You can build trust in an instant, because at that point in time, I realized that he trusted me, and I, from that point on, changed my view of how I dealt with the people who worked with me and for me, my crewmates, and all the people around me, because he entrusted his life in my hands, okay? That's a powerful idea. So while we think trust has to be built over a lifetime or certainly a long time, I argue that you can build trust in an instant, like that. So it's a point to consider. Now, with the conference had really three main goals, and I hope we achieve those goals, and I want to get feedback from you on each of those things. The first goal was that we would increase your knowledge, your learning about the theme of leadership in adversity. So if I get a show of hands or some claps to see, did we achieve that goal? Are you able to say you learned something about leadership in adversity? Okay. All right. The second goal that we had for the conference was to help you feel something about it. Did you gain a new perspective? Whether it's from being here at the Naval Academy or from the interactions you had with other people or from listening to all the great, wonderful speakers and panelists. Did you gain a new perspective on leadership that you didn't have before? Anybody? Okay. The third goal, did we help increase your interaction with leaders who you are peers to in business, future business leaders, future government, future military leaders? Did we do a good job of making it engaging, interactive, and hopefully fun? Did we? Okay. All right. Well, that's good feedback. that's good feedback for us. But I think the real test is down the road to see what we actually do with this. I mean all of you do with this. Because guess what? You're going to get back on planes, trains, and in automobiles, and you got to have homework to do. And life is going to take over. So the key is not necessarily what you just applauded about, but what you do with what just happened over the last 3.5 days. And so if you would, this is a really short quiz. I'd like you to take out your notepads really quickly, and I'm going to give you a real brief quiz. Okay? Really brief. Everybody ready? Okay. 5 questions, or 5 things on this quiz. 5 things. First thing, write down the word keep. Write down the word keep. Keep. K-E-E-P. Keep. Dash, tell me what you are going to continue doing in order to better prepare you as a leader who can face adversity. Okay, what are you going to continue to do? What are you going to emphasize? Write down one thing. Bullet, sentence, what have you. What are you going to keep doing, reinforce, continue doing? Make your focus to be a better leader in adversity. And when you're done, look up. Number 2. Stop. Hyphen. What are you going to say no to? What are you going to stop doing? What are you going to redouble your efforts to improve at so that you can be the very best leader you can in the face of adversity? Okay? Stop. Number 3, start. What are you going to do differently? What are you going to start doing in your leader development efforts to focus on facing adversity and having the character, the strength of character to be able to weather that storm for you and your teams? Okay? Keep, stop, start. Number 4, write down the names of 2 people you've met at this conference. Write down the names of 2 people you've met at this conference who you will, in the next 30 days, share some progress on your keep, stop, start lists. And hopefully it's not somebody who's going to be in the van riding home with you from the conference today. 2 names of 2 people who you can share your progress on your keep, stop, start list. And then number 5, last question. Write down the names of 2 people, not at this conference, at your schools, who you will share in the next 30 days some progress about your keep, stop, start list. All right? You'll all get 100% on the quiz if you actually follow through on that. Okay? All right. Now, this conference would not be possible without the unbelievable support of our sponsors. The class of 38 who established this legacy in this conference, and Mitch and Linda Hart, who have so generously allowed us to include all of you here today. They have been and they continue to be passionate supporters of leadership and of growing you into leaders for society. And so I just want to have one round of applause for our conference sponsors. They give us that margin of excellence to allow us to do this in a world-class way, and I really am deeply appreciative of their efforts. Second thing I'd like to do is I'd like to have all of the school faculty, sponsors, facilitators, escorts stand up, please. If you're here in the room, please. All the faculty, staff, sponsors, escorts. I think that from the different universities, and I would like all of you to thank them as well, because they are the reason you are here and the reason you are engaged so much in leadership. They are the people who are going to take you back to your institutions and continue to inspire you, to continue to teach you and help you grow as leaders. So, please, a round of applause for the faculty sponsors. Thank you. And lastly, I want to bring up one more time our conference staff, if they will please come up. Lieutenant Commander Kelly Welsh, Lieutenant Walt Point, please come up here. They are our conference coordinator and assistant coordinator. Walt will be coordinating the conference next year, so if any of you want to get your names on the list now, see Walt after the conference for that. And if I could, I will just run down the list, and again, hold your applause to the very end. But Troy Tauber is our vice chair and gift master extraordinaire. Mike DeLong has been the curriculum officer. Charlotte Hauser has been our speakers officer. Caroline Lopez, our ops officer. Sean Sweeney, the technology officer. Chloe Staub, our schools officer. And Brittany Fruin as the logistician, getting all the great food for us. And last but not least is our conference chair,